Hello, merry meet. So, usually I haven't been talking about a lot of anime and manga topics, but I am a huge fan of both. There is one thing within anime that, and manga too, that really irritates me. So I thought I would address it because I am watching an anime now that I so want to like, because it's right up my alley. It's called Occult Academy. And I mean, yes, by the title, if you know me at all, you realize that that's exactly the kind of thing that I like. Only that it has one of the abusive Tsundere type characters, and oh. Here's the thing. There's a lot of anime and manga that show female characters being downright abusive to the male ones. And by that, I mean female characters that beat up male characters, are verbally abusive, use random violence, and all of this. And it's sort of seen as, oh, that's okay because it's a woman. But it's not. It's not. And I'm going to draw this topic beyond the realm of anime and manga and into general the idea of abuse a little bit later. But let me describe this anime I'm watching now. So you have this school that it's dedicated to the study of the occult. And you have a new teacher that's actually a time traveler, but all of these details aren't that important for this topic. But then you have the school's headmistress. And yeah, I mean, during the first few episodes, this is what happens. She gets attacked by a monster in her bedroom, and he rushes in to help her, which results in her kicking him in the face. They get chased by this monster down into the basement, and eventually defeats it, and they find this notebook of sorts. And he says, "Oh, that looks like a notebook," and she punches him in the face for no apparent reason. And a little bit later, he asks her if she likes the occult, where she wears this bangle. And while the drawings is not so detailed as to know exactly what it's made of, I'm thinking it's supposed to be either jade or some sort of lucite. Anyway, that's pretty hard. She takes that on her knuckles, so it's like a knuckle duster, and punches him in the face. And this episode ends with you hear him screaming in pain. That's violence. That's abuse. I mean, I'm not particularly a fan of the basically smacking them over the head with a book or verbal abuse either, but that's direct violence. That can do some harm, but it's just played for fun. That's the humor. Most of the humor in the book, in the series, comes from two things. One of the characters that constantly loses her glasses at inopportune moments, and Maya's abuse of Abe. I mean, it's not like it's the only one. There's so many series like this where you see, to varying degree, the female characters abusing the male ones. And, I mean, take a Bakan test, where they go as far as nearly killing them. Basically, you have some of the men have been sneaking a peek at the girls. And so they tie them up as the tide comes in. And they die. They actually die because they go into the spirit world, but they're revived. And another time, there's some slight a couple of the male characters have been doing, and so they make them kneel down on something that it looks like a washboard, but it's this must be like a washboard, and then they just add stones to that. That's actually an old torture technique. You make somebody kneel on basically a washboard, and you just add more and more weight to that. It's excruciatingly painful. And yeah, it's hilarious because it's the girls that do it to the boys. And no, first of all, I am so waiting for somebody, for a man within those books to just smack these girls back. I mean, what fucking pussies of erasing if we have this idea that men should just sit and take it. One thing is, don't hit women. That's fine. Don't hit women. Don't hit people that are weaker than you. But don't take all kind of bullshit either. There's a limit. And I mean, I was told this constantly because in Norway we have a tendency, don't hit those that are weaker than you. And when I grew up, I was pretty big, I was pretty strong, and I had bullies coming after me left and right. And when I fought back, I got to blame because, oh, you hit somebody who is weaker than you. I usually didn't hit them. I usually stopped them from hitting me. But that's another matter. The point is, at some point you have to say fuck it and defend yourself. So let me take another example. What is the English name? I think is this a zombie? Anyway, you have this guy, he dies, but this really, really powerful necromancer wakes him up again. And he ends up living in a house with her and a magic girl that he accidentally steals the powers of, and a couple of vampire ninjas. It's a long story. Anyway, he is definitely the most powerful of them all, except for the necromancer. But these girls, they constantly verbally and physically abuse him. And it's fun because he heals, so let's torture him. And I mean that, like, blowing off limbs and that kind of thing, because he heals. Not to mention all the verbal abuse. They call him a worm. They degrade him and berate him at every turn. And this is constant. It's in so many animes. I mean, you have even a lesser extent to it I'm watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, where you have the main female character. She works with a paper fan, and every time one of the male characters do something she doesn't like, she smacks them over the head with it. And while that probably doesn't really cause much pain, it still isn't okay to react to basically some sort of slight that somebody's saying or not saying by using physical violence against them. And abuse isn't anymore okay if it's from a girl towards a boy. Now, the problem is that you can see this shit in so many franchises, and not just anime and manga. You can see it in all things where you see that it's sort of okay for the female character to slap the male character, but it's a horror if it's the other way around. And if you're going back to anime for a while, there's this anime called, I think it's Charger Girls. I'm pretty sure it's Charger Girls. It's basically about some basically magic girls, though they don't have that trope around them because they don't really transform or anything. They're more like they're living in another dimension and they go to our dimension and cure people's depression by charging them. It's ridiculous, but there we have a male character that treats these charger girls the same way that there's a lot of male characters do in most other animes. And this anime gets so criticized by, it's supporting abuse of women, blah, 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 blah. Because that's horrible, because it's a male doing it toward a female. And I'm not saying that's okay either. But then that's horrible. Then we have to cry about it. But if a man accidentally walks into his own bathroom, not knowing there's a woman there that is bathing, and she hits him with something that, if this wasn't fiction, would cause a lot of broken bones, that's perfectly okay. Woo-hoo-hoo. And it's not. Basically, the Tsundere archetype is fine in and of itself. The concept of this very cold, harsh woman that eventually then becomes fond of the male character. I mean, it's a common archetype, and it's a good one. It's not one I have anything against. But when it takes to the point where it is an abusive Tsundere, usually we're then talking about is it type I or type B? You basically have one type that's harsh and someone that's called soft. So it's basically the harsh Tsundere. But anyway, it's not okay. There's a point in other types of fiction too. If you look at movies, you can see that it's not that uncommon for a female character to slap male characters, and it's considered completely okay. And it's not. But let's take this from fiction and into reality and see why I'm thinking this is a problem. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that, I think it was 27 or was it 30% of all domestic abuse is done by a woman towards a man. Think about that for a moment. We hear about, and I completely agree. Women tends to be weaker than men physically, so a man usually have the ability to do more harm. But still, think about that. Almost 30% of all domestic abuse happens by the hands of a woman towards a man. That means this is an actual problem, and it shouldn't be made fun of and sort of be used in fiction as something that we all laugh at. Because basically abuse isn't okay, whatever it's from a man towards a woman or a woman towards a man. It's not okay. But let me take an example. My mother was watching a Dr. Phil episode, and I decided to watch it with her. And it was this quarreling couple. And he was called abusive. Now, the two examples where he said that he was abusive and violent towards his wife was one time when she was hitting him and kicking him and biting him, and he was trying to get away from her. He was trying to get into a closet and lock the door so that she couldn't get at him. When she continued to do this, he eventually pushed her so she fell on her butt so he could get into the closet and lock the door. And Dr. Phil was, "Oh, you're abusive, you're using your size against her, you're the abuser." Never mind, but and her hitting and kicking and biting him wasn't, okay, her behavior wasn't acceptable, but he was the abuser because he has a penis. And another example from that couple was that they were quarreling and he wanted to leave, and she was in the doorway refusing to let him leave, basically robbing him of his freedom. And he eventually had enough of that, so he lifted her, turned around, walked into the bedroom, put her on the bed, and then walked out. Didn't harm her, didn't hit her, didn't cause her pain. He basically lifted her up and moved her so he could go outside. And now he was abusive, he used his size against her. That's not okay. She was abusing him. He defended himself. And I mean, my husband has experienced this. He was in his late teens, when there was this girl that attacked him. She threw rockets at him and attacked him and tried to scratch him in the face, and eventually he had enough, so he pushed her hard enough that she fell on the ground hard. And then there was teachers and parents and everything just went completely ballistic on him because he was violent against the girl. Never mind what she had done to him. And a friend of us, basically, his wife or girlfriend was abusive towards him and kicking and biting. I don't think she was biting, she was kicking and scratching and going completely ballistic. And eventually, to protect himself and his kid that he was holding, he pushed her and she fell on the ground. And then people went, "Oh no, he's abusive." There has to be bounds of reason. And one of those bounds of reason is that we have to say that it's not okay. It doesn't matter if you're the man or the woman. The one person that starts to use physical violence to enforce their will or to express their displeasure with another person is wrong. Now granted, it is perhaps the consequences is often worse if it is a man that do it, because he's often stronger and can do more damage. Though not always. There's this couple in my hometown. He was eventually where the wife were abusive towards the man, and he was eventually rescued. And I mean, she would use the on your vacuum cleaner, that flexible thing that the vacuum cleaner thingy, and hit him over the arms hard enough to break the bones. She would stab him in the gut with forks and sent him to the hospital multiple times. However, usually a woman doesn't manage to do as much physical harm on a man as the other way around, but that still doesn't make it okay, and therefore I think it's irresponsible to have this archetype within manga and anime that sort of makes it the funny point, makes it the butt of the joke that the woman is abusive towards the man. Because it is a real problem. A lot of people think that domestic abuse, it only happens from a man towards a woman. It doesn't. But there's so many problems with this. And I mean, it's 30% of the cases where it's a man that's the victim, and it's hardly any shelters for men. Think about that. There's hardly any shelters for abused men. It's made fun of, it's made light of, it's not okay, and that makes the abusive Tsundere an extremely aggravating character archetype. It's not fun, it's not cute, it's not sexy, it is not thing to react to somebody saying something you don't like by hitting them in the face with a lucite bangle. It is not okay to react to somebody trying to sneak a peek at you when you're changing by using an ancient torture techniques on them or trying to kill them. It is not okay to verbally and physically abuse the person that is nice enough to let you live in his apartment, even if he may happen to be a zombie. Basically, here's the thing. So, I'm sure some people will say, but you're into BDSM and the Gorian lifestyle. What about that? Yeah, but that's something else. Then both parties have agreed that a certain degree of physical discipline is acceptable, and that the dominant party may use these methods to make the submissive party obedient. But here we are talking about people that's never agreed to anything, and where it's abuse often of a very serious nature, and it's sort of made light of, and it's not okay. So, I mean, am I saying you should ban the abusive Tsundere? No. But I'm thinking that it's a very popular character archetype, and I think that's bad. I don't think it's a good character archetype, and I think it helps make the problem of abuse towards men worse. Because domestic abuse isn't okay, whatever it is, or abuse of classmates or employees or random people on the street for that matter. Basically, it's not okay to respond to annoyance, somebody being rude to you, somebody saying something to you, or you just being in a bad mood, by inflicting pain and violence on a person unless you have some sort of prior agreement with them for it. So yeah, I wish this was a character archetype that was used more sparingly, because it sort of says that abuse of men are okay when it's from the hands of a woman, and it isn't. And I also wish that there were some more animes where when the abusive Tsundere tried to pull a crap, he defended himself. And actually, very often these men have more power, not just physically, but often these are supernatural tales, and he is an amazingly powerful mage and can just blow her shit up. I just wish at times there would be a male character that said, no, you know what? You have inflicted violence on me for the last time. Next time, I will respond in kind. And when she continues, he does that. Because, yeah. Well, anyway, I've been rambling on way too long, so I hope you have a great day, and blessed be.